Graphic design? Can you make a living at that?
3, 2, 1, fun, 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 fun.
Welcome to Design Futures, a show about what happens after design school. I'm Chris St. Cyr, and my guest on this episode is Melike Turgut. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Melike is a design manager at Squarespace, where she leads the web expressibility team. She has also designed books, apps, games, interiors, brand guidelines, and campaigns while working at Sci Partners, AKQA, Digitas, and RGA. She's also currently an adjunct instructor of interaction design at the School of Visual Arts and a 2011 graduate of the Ringling College of Art and Design.
That makes me sound so impressive, but
you are impressive. Yes. I mean, look at that list. There's some significant digital companies on that list. You know, hopefully we'll get to talk a little bit about that pathway that led you to Squarespace. That's where I want to start. I mean, everybody knows Squarespace these days. It's all over
podcast.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I really hear the advertising a lot. Is all my favorite podcasts. Squarespace is one of the sponsors. But I wanted to start with the design manager. What is your role as a design manager of the web expressibility team?
Yeah, that's a new role for me. It's been about 2 months, so I'm easing into it. But what it really means is I'm doing less execution work and more just checking in and setting a foundation for other designers. I manage 3 people who are ranging from junior designers to senior designers. It's a lot of documentation sometimes. It's bringing starting points to a project and just overseeing the design of whatever everyone's working on.
So you're in that manager role. So you're managing people and projects, right?
Yeah, because I'm transitioning right now, I'm still in that world of still doing the work and still managing people.
And is the team new, or was the team put together with you in mind, or how did that work out?
One person is new, we just hired him, but then the other team members on my team have been with me working side by side.
You're at the manager level, and what was your position before manager?
I was a design lead. And before that, I was a senior designer for a really long time. So the design lead role happened, which I was pretty happy about, because in that role, you're still doing a lot of the design work, the design thinking, and just carving that path of once the project is briefed, you still have that ownership, but you don't have to manage people, which is great because you have all the time to just do the execution and just create the vision that you see. I did that role for a year, and then the manager thing happened.
10 years in the field, what's the range of salary for, and you're a design manager, which is a different responsibility. So that's a different level than, you know, a lot of students coming out of school. Obviously you're going to be a junior level or entry level. What's a salary range that you might expect at your level?
At my company, there's 3 levels, design manager 1, 2, 3. The entire compassing of the manager role could range from 160 to 200, depending on experience, more or less, that can add to it. But those are usually the bands that you would see.
Yeah, I think that's something that's important for, I think, young designers to see, that there's potential in promotion and salary and all those kinds of things. And like you said, when you start to get in those upper levels, you actually do less design.
There is something that's happening which is interesting, and I'm glad it's happening, because usually people start out as designers and then they, like you said, they either want a promotion, they want more money, more recognition, they want a leadership role, and then the path is manager. So they're promoted into this role that they did not really prepare for. But what's happening now is, in the past couple of years, there's this title called staff designers that's popping up a lot more. We have them in my company as well, and I see it in most places now. It's just showing up. And then there's also principal designers. And these people, actually, the minimum experience level that they have is 10, 12 years. So they're still designers and they still focus on craft, no managing whatsoever. They don't want to do that. They still want to be an individual contributor. And I think that's so amazing, because they still get paid, for their experience level and their contribution, if not more, like just like as much as a manager would. And there's at the table making decisions, they're in the leadership role.
I mean, it makes sense, but
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really heard much about that. I'll have to look into that. That's because you're right. I mean, there's definitely, you know, people when you get to a certain point in your career and you still want to be a designer, you don't want to have to give up the design to have more responsibility or to do a different kind of job. But I want also to, like in your bio or your intro that I gave, it's web expressibility. Can you explain what that is? What's a web expressibility team at Squarespace?
Good question. Expressibility, that word is so interesting because what does it even mean? We came up with that word because we just couldn't really put a word to web design, but it's really what it means. It's web design. It's interesting. I mean, Squarespace is tech. So I work in tech, and any tech company, the makeup of a team is you have a product designer, you have a product manager, and you have a bunch of engineers. What's really interesting about Squarespace is you have web design in the mix because the main tool we're creating is a website builder. So my team is kind of the expert almost in that field. We come in and we help the product designers and engineers identify the right functions, the right styling options, the desirability of a certain, let's say, a template or a section layout, and how that layout could turn into different layouts with different people. So it's a lot of figuring out the expressibility of a layout.
It's like all the versions. I was reading the title of the article that you wrote for the blog is something like a million websites or a million.
Designing for the million websites.
And that was a fascinating article to read, and just the approach to a design system within, you know, web platform, which makes me think of connecting it with other things going on in technology in terms of design production. And that's artificial intelligence, right? Like Adobe, they have they have their tool called Sensei, right? And it does all these amazing things like in Photoshop. And so I wonder, has Squarespace looked into, or are you looking into artificial intelligence to, you know, to come up with all those million variations, and then you as the designers are, you know, refining those choices?
Yeah, we have a machine learning team. Usually they work on internal projects. For example, like if you go to search for like customer service, the bot that gives you answers, that's like all machine learning before you get to a real person, so that you can kind of, you know, easily find stuff. But then we have another aspect of machine learning that looks into just layout types. We're not there yet to kind of come up with like a product, but we are definitely always experimenting with, even if you just like had a JPEG of something, could that turn into a website? How would it turn into a website? So we do a lot of experimentation that way, which is fascinating. And I do see that being the future, and designers are there to finesse that product because you still have to add that design aesthetic.
Yeah, you still have to make those final choices, and and understanding users and behaviors and interpretation and intention, right? Like there's things that the machine won't do, but it's definitely things that the machine will do really well, like make a million iterations of something very quickly. You know, there's definitely that discussion going on in design that it will replace some level of designer job, you know, that
for sure.
The designers that are just making iterations of whatever logos or layouts or whatever it is, like at some point that role could be in jeopardy. Since we're talking about that, I want to share my screen because just so I can. So are you and your team coming up with, like, I don't know, say like the system of this, like the color palette and the type, and then you're going over variations for any of these? How do these come into existence here?
There's multiple products that I'm working on. So whenever I kind of unlock a new type of layout with the engineers that I can kind of make, I try to gauge its usability from a visitor perspective. Like what type of purpose can be attached to that layout? What type of content could I put? Could someone else put? These might look complicated and very designed, but they all lie on a very simple foundation that is the bulk of my work, which is identifying these styling options and the functions and how they just kind of, it's almost like a living organism, like how does it work? And it is definitely like an automated system, but it's a lot of edge cases, it's a lot of guardrails. Like when you want to make, it's not, sometimes
what do you mean by guardrails? What's that
like
mean?
setting rules. Like sometimes it seems so simple, I just want to make this image full bleed, but then you don't want the text to touch the edges. So text cannot go full bleed. But what does that mean? Like, is the user adjusting that? If they're adjusting it, what are the values that they're adjusting it for? You can't make it too complicated. You can't make it too simple. I think that just shows like, those are like little pieces that I have to determine and add into the UI so that our users are able to adjust the layout as they see fit. It's a matter of combination of the usability and the desirability. So expressibility is more about, I want that. Like you see a layout and you're like, I want that. And the usability is, I can do that. Product design kind of takes care of the usability aspect. Is this easy to use? Is this playful enough? Is this, easy to navigate, change, update? And the expressibility part is, does this look like something that I want on my site? Does this look good with my content?
I think you write about it in that article. It's not designing this one solution, right? You're designing a system. The system is the solution that you're designing.
Yeah, it's a lot of systems thinking. That's definitely the word for it.
So could you explain what this project is, this kind of display?
Yeah. This was for Verizon. They came to AKQA, and it was actually a very interesting time because this was about 4 or 5 years ago. They went to this branding agency, Whiten & Kennedy. They asked them to create digital assets because they just had Pentagram do their logo. And then they went to this other agency, Siegel and Gale, to ask them to create voice and tone. And then they came to AKQA as their digital partner to create designs in the digital world. So it was actually really interesting because it's a bunch of like companies just coming together, and we would have meetings like once a week.
You're meeting with all those groups at the same time?
Yes, we would do a brand check-in where Whiten & Kennedy would be on the call, AKQA would be on the call, Siegel and Gale would be on the call, Pentagram would be on the call.
Wow.
And
that's a lot of big players in one call for one project.
They decided that they want to go full on retail. This was obviously before COVID, and retail spaces were the place to be. This place that you're looking at, it's Mall of America. They wanted to create this massive, massive space. They wanted it to be like very high tech, a lot of screens, like touch screens, like things that are smart. You can pick a plan, pick a phone, compare plans. The team just went to work on various different ways to approach it. Some people were working on, okay, how would you pick a plan if it was on a screen, if it was a kiosk? Some people, the motion designers, worked on these like massive screens that you're seeing. I was on the digital side, but there were people who worked on the print retail aspect. So they would do a lot of signage and promotional things all around. We designed that entire Mall of America for Verizon and various different Verizon stores.
And so what was your role? Were you designing some of these touchscreen interfaces?
Yeah, I designed that screen, that like this one, not by myself, but I was one of the designers on it, along with this screen that you're looking at, this one where you pick a plan and coverage. Yeah, and prototyping all of these things. Yeah, it was super cool. We had all of these screens actually in the office too, because we had to like test them. So it was really fun to like design something on the computer, go up to the screen, touch it, play with it, go back into the, that was definitely fun to see the kiosk come to life. The
other project on your website, you can talk about briefly, but I really like the personal project that you have here with the process diagrams. You know, I'm a sucker for a good diagram. Can you just talk a little bit about these? They look like maps of a different world.
It's funny. This started my senior year at Ringling. This was a project, it did not look like this at first, but this was a project for Higgins.
Mm.
I don't even know what the project was, but we were just asked all of a sudden to create a infograph. People created infograms for like random stuff. I just wanted to create something for like with my own data. This was one of the first ones that I've done. So it's like 10 years ago. Again, it did not look like this. I finessed it. It still has the core idea of this almost like time going backwards, and because the red line is the timeline, but the blue line is just kind of going counterclockwise to reach the end. And I just wanted to describe how much you have to do in design work. There's just
It's not a straight line from like, here's your prompt to design. It's,
yeah,
you're telling me you really, it's all circuitous and like,
yeah,
roadblocks. Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked doing that. And then I didn't touch this for like several years. And then I don't know how it happened, but I came across it again in my old files, and I was like, I really like this. I liked the fact that I was doing something to visualize my process. And I wondered like, oh, how would it work if I actually, came across an obstacle? How would my timeline change? How would my process change? So I just kind of like started doing this. I do less of it, but whenever I have time, these are like super accessible to me at my desk, where I just like, especially if I'm doing something new, I try to put it in a graphic instead of words. Some people write about their process. I just try to express it with these.
You make a doodle.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. And then I still try to write about, just to give context, because when someone looks at this, they're probably like, what is going on here?
That's a good segue into your time at Ringling. That's where we met. Where were you before Ringling, and how did you choose that school?
It's funny, I didn't really choose it. I wanted to go to Maryland. And then they wouldn't want me. I was taking AP art or AP portfolio, like one of these art classes. And I did have an instructor who was very helpful to everyone in the class, especially like our senior year. And she was like suggesting, you should try applying to this school. You would like this one. She was very like helpful. So Ringling came from that. Like she was just like, there's a school called Ringling. It's in Sarasota. I really did enjoy my time there. I learned a lot. I met amazing people.
I need you to tell the story about the drawing project in my class. There are stories in my teaching career that I always remember, and this is one of those stories. And so tell the story. I think it was like a drawing project where I had students use traditional tools and then find some untraditional tools to use to draw and make marks.
Before I get to that, your assignment was crazy, because you didn't just say like, oh, just pick up a few things and like draw with that. You said something like, find 50 untraditional tools. I live in a dorm room. I have nothing. And it was so difficult. I feel like if you ask me this right now, I can just look around and I can just find anything.
Right.
I would find hundreds of things. But as a college student, just in a dorm, I was out of objects within like my fifth object. Yeah, so I kept pushing. I went outside. I did what I could. I think I reached like 25. And I was still in my dorm room by the window. There's a window right in front. And I'm just like a little bit frustrated, because how am I going to finish this assignment? I want to finish it. Like I want to get a good grade or whatever. And then there comes a lizard just from that window. And I didn't even think twice about it. I just picked it up and dipped them in ink and then I just made marks. I did feel okay about it, because a friend of mine told me that lizards can drop their tails, but then it will just grow back. It's fine. So I was like, this is fine. Clearly this is fine. It's going to grow a new tail. It's all good.
You have to sacrifice for your art.
Yeah.
It worked out. It's Florida, you gotta use what's around you, and there's plenty of those little lizards running around Florida.
Totally.
I think for me though, it's also telling of who you are And clearly you're talented. I mean, seriously, look at all the work you've done. You've worked some amazing companies, amazing projects. And I think that, like that story is kind of funny and charming, but it also shows me and I think other students and educators, like, yeah, like you can just give up or you can just push through or just kind of use what's around you. And I don't know, I think there's something nice about like seeing where you are now, the success you have, with tying it back to those kinds of stories. And there are probably some other stories like that too, that you could probably think of. That, that's definitely about like the teaching part, which I do want to hear about your teaching. Like you may be the first student I know of that has taught adjunct. So you're teaching at SVA, right? School of Visual Arts. So tell me how that happened and talk about a little bit what you're teaching.
Yeah, so we went to SVA's portfolio reviews, and it's kind of like almost like an industry event. A lot of people go, a lot of companies, agencies, art studios will go to find interns. And that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted to hire an intern for our team. And we did, which was awesome. But in the process, we got introduced to someone who was working there. And she just like her face lit up the moment like she heard us say that we're from Squarespace, because she knew that, oh, like a website builder tool, we need more instructors who can teach digital. Will you guys be interested? At the time, she only spoke to my manager, and we just kind of heard about it, but we just moved on. Then like months later, that just kind of kept coming up because she kept emailing. She was very persistent. She kept emailing to my manager, like, we really need someone. Like, I think you guys would be perfect, all that kind of stuff. And I co-teach with another coworker of mine. He was really interested in it. And then he kind of asked me if I wanted to do it also, because first-time teachers, I guess like it's better for SVA to kind of have two rather than just one. Even though I wasn't looking to teach, I was like, this is a nice opportunity. I think I could do it. I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Famous last words from adjunct instructors.
Yeah, I thought it'd be fun. It'd be nice to like meet people and all that kind of stuff. It was just quite disorganized. But we made it. I signed a contract an hour before I had to teach, so that was great. Everything was so not on time. I walked in without even a key card. The students had to open doors for me, but then they were just like giving me looks because it's like, they're like, oh, you're another student or something.
Right.
And then I come into class and it's just, there's clearly an age difference, but like not that big of an age difference, where they immediately see you as like, oh, the instructor. So that was definitely interesting. It's been good. It's been our first year. I kind of want to apologize to everyone I taught in my first year because I had I hope they got stuff out of it. Looking back, it was definitely all over the place. We had a very high level syllabus that we barely followed, and it was it was just hard. It's also interesting because I feel like in looking back into my experience, I had semester-long classes. I didn't have year-long classes. Yeah, so this was interesting because we were quite shocked that like, oh, we're teaching next semester with the same people. What more are we going to talk about?
And it's the same course? You're teaching web and interaction design?
Yeah, it's like part 1 and part 2.
Okay.
So I guess it gets more advanced, but we thought it was one semester and we would repeat that semester. So they didn't even tell us that. So we were like, oh no, we have to teach more.
So just add more complexity to the problems for the spring. So is this your second year? This
is my second year. This year is so much better. Yeah, it's just interesting. Like the tables have turned.
Right. So what do you think about teaching, about the role of a teacher? Or, I mean, have you had any of those kind of moments like where you reflect back on, being in the classroom as a student, like, oh, that's what they were doing? Or like, have you like come to any realizations?
I feel like it happens all the time. Like less so over Zoom. In the previous semester, just like being in class, you can just tell when someone like did work literally an hour before. And it's so
No.
because when I was a student, I would do something an hour before and I would be like, there's no way he could tell. And now it's so obvious when someone did something an hour before.
Yes.
And they try to, feed you as like, yeah, I've been working on this day and night, 5 days straight. And it's like, no, that's not true.
There are very few students I've had that can get away with that. I mean, there are definitely some, there's some, you might work with some of them. There are some designers that can just kind of pull it out, in the last hour. Like, there it is, it's all done. And it looks great. And it meets all the benchmarks of
Right.
what should be happening. But yeah, most of the time it's, there's a lot of BS when it comes to that kind of presentation. One of the questions I sent you ahead of time, I don't know if you thought about it, but you having, being a teacher now, so that's definitely a different role than you have as your full-time job. So the question is, what do you think needs to change in design education? Is there anything, or, from your perspective as a designer, 10 years experience as a design manager, managing other younger designers, and now teaching a little bit, are there things that you think about when you look back at your own design education?
Yeah, that's a great question because, what needs to change? From my class now, and also like reflecting to my design education, students aren't really answering the question why they're doing something. And sometimes it's okay because you are experimenting clearly. The reason is to experiment. But sometimes I'm looking at work and there's a certain typeface being used or a certain color. And I just want people to be able to say why they're using that. Not just like, that's a color I picked or I like that color. It might be that they like that color, but if they really if they thought about it, just reflected on it a little bit, they're going to find something else. They're going to find a reason why. And I think that's missing because I look at so much work now with the students, the 15 people just constantly like sharing work, and they can't really answer why they're doing something. When you start working, you really have to defend your ideas. You can't just go to your, design manager or, client or whoever and say, this is a really trendy font and I want to use it. Or this color is like my favorite. It's awesome. It's so whatever. You have to put substance to it. And, some people are really great at bullshitting. And they get away with it. And you're like, oh my God. But you really have to learn to talk about it.
I asked a few of my students, and because you've had this career, which has, again, you've worked for some major digital companies, I want to ask this one question in particular. Maggie Birek, she asked, were the beginning stages of being a designer difficult, and did you struggle finding a job in the beginning?
I have an interesting answer to that because so I went to high school in Florida, I went to college in Florida, and I just knew both times I just want to get out of Florida. Nothing against Florida necessarily, but I just wanted to leave. It was just not my place. However, being a student, I just didn't have the funds to just all right, I'm just gonna buy a ticket, go to New York, the most expensive place in America, I'll be fine. So I only applied to jobs in New York that would fly me there, that would pay me money, and that would help me find a place. That's a lot to ask for, but I found 2 places that would actually do that for you. One of them, I forget the name of this agency. I don't think they even exist anymore. And the other place was called MRM, and they were doing this, they called it the apartment program. They wouldn't necessarily fly you to New York, but they would give you an apartment for free and they would pay you on top of that. And I was like, this is what I need. I don't even know what MRM does, but that's just a foot into the door.
I'll do it.
Yeah, I'll do it. A lot of my friends at the time were applying to their like dream jobs or the studios that they've been following all of their college careers. I wanted to do that, but it just wasn't realistic for me. Even if I was accepted, like there's no way I could have gone. That's why I applied to those 2 places. I never heard from the other one, but then the MRM place, they got back to me because, also interesting, a Ringling student a year above me, Will Demondi, I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I'm connected to him, some platform.
So Will was part of the apartment program, apparently. So he did that. He was hired by MRM, joined, stayed in this apartment with like 4 other people, and worked at MRM. So that's why they knew Ringling, and they saw my application and they're like, cool, like we like Will, we'll probably like this girl.
Okay.
So I got lucky, I got in. It turns out that MRM is an advertising agency. I never wanted to work in advertising ever in my life, but again, if I had to do it, I would do it again, because it got me in New York, it got me an apartment in Williamsburg for free. It's insane. Again, if I had to do it by myself, I'd probably live somewhere so far away so that it's cheap, and then I would have to like deal with so many other issues. So forever grateful. And I stayed there, and every other job after that has been through a connection. It's so important to, build bridges, not burn them, and just constantly network and meet people and be nice to people and be just a good person so that people want to work with you. I was in MRM. I had a creative director who left MRM to go to Digitas, and he called me. He's like, you want to work here? I was like, sure. I still don't know what I'm doing, just sure, like something different. I got that job there, and I was there, and then I left because another director went to AKQA, and he's like, you want to come here? There's like this kind of stuff happening. Cool, I'll come there. And then that's literally how everything happened.
All right, so I want to wrap up with some pop quiz questions. It's like you're in college again. I'm pretty sure you'll pass. Okay, so work beverage.
Coffee.
Coffee, gotta keep going. After work beverage.
More coffee.
More coffee. Oh, okay. Yeah. So you work for a tech company. So I want you to think about your workstation. How many computer monitors do you have?
Just this one.
Just one?
I'm a special case. Everyone is weirded out by it, but I'm a trackpad designer with a laptop. I can go.
Wow. That seems very slow. You don't have like 3 monitors in front of you?
No, everyone else does. In the office, it was always like a joke because, everyone gets an additional monitor. Yeah. And I had one too, because anyone who works there, you have a massive curved screen monitor. And I would just hang my like jackets and stuff there. And everyone just like, what are you doing? That is like a $5,000 monitor. And it's like, I don't use it. It's too big. I can't.
Okay, next question. Type or image?
Type.
Type. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you listen to music when you're designing?
No.
No. Silence?
Silence, or I actually would prefer like a show, like a very like lame show running in the background.
Yeah, so you don't have to pay attention to it.
Yeah, like I don't pay attention, but it's just sound. Like that's definitely, yeah.
Okay, so we're in unique times as far as work. So work from home or work from the office? Work
from the office for sure. Yeah. I do miss like just the people interaction. And also Squarespace does have a really, really nice office that I miss being around. Where's
the office located?
It's in Soho. It has a really, really beautiful view. It's on 11th floor. And in Soho, there isn't like much, like a lot of tall buildings. So you get pretty nice sky view. And just like the aesthetic of the place is really nice. Like everything is kind of concrete, which was kind of funny because when I started 3 years ago, it was like really beautiful and nice, but then we've scaled and grew like dramatically. And who knew you can't really move concrete desks? So everyone just kept squishing and squishing in, and it was just really awkward. Bad design decision there.
Can't move concrete desks. Yeah. Note to self. Okay, so last question, design or manage?
Design.
What are your final words for aspiring designers, students?
Well, I think I just want to reinforce that there are so many jobs out there related to design, just so many. The things that I'm doing right now did not even exist 10 years ago. I learned none of the stuff that I'm doing in school, like product development, product strategy, anything related to tech, because none of that really existed. But it's all the same fundamentals. It's all, I keep going back to like the basics of design, right? Typography, space, just the rhythm of elements. That has never changed, and it's not really going to change. There's just so much out there. I have to tell my students all the time, you could do this, you could do that, this could happen. Even certain things, when I see a student designing, but they're really good with words, there's a job for that. It's called content strategy. Like you can, because you have to like think and work with words, but you have to work them in designs. You might have an eye for that. There's, if you're really interested in the research aspect of it, there's UX research. That's like, we have an entire team of, I think, 20 people at Squarespace that do that job. UX people that understand research and strategy and work with users. So there's just so much out there. It's actually kind of amazing. I just want people to know that it's available for the taking.
That's great. That's really good advice. Well, thanks so much. It's been great talking to you. I'll encourage well, I don't teach seniors this semester, but I'll say, I know all the seniors are putting together their portfolio websites, and some of them I'm sure are choosing Squarespace. So you might be using some design that Melike worked on at some point in the past year or two. So go check out Squarespace and all those million amazing designs that Melike has worked on. It was great to talk to you. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
Great.
Bye.
Bye.
What did we learn from Melike? Well, if a stranger at a design event asks you to teach, you should teach. You might learn something about design. Also, don't be a jerk. Well, in her words, be a nice person. Somebody you work with might move on to a new job, and they might ask you to join them. And finally, draw with something other than a pencil. You might end up telling that story on a podcast someday. Thanks to Melike Turgut of Squarespace. If you have any comments or questions for me or my guests, please leave them in the comments and subscribe so you can catch the next episode of Design Futures. Until next time, go learn something. Your future depends on it. Thanks for listening. See ya.